The underdogs rise. The cavernous hangar of Starbase Omega hummed with activity as beings from a dozen different worlds scurried about their tasks. Amidst the cacophony of alien languages and the whir of advanced machinery, Jack Harper felt more alone than ever. He tightened his grip on the datapad in his hands, took a deep breath, and strode towards the imposing figure of his boss, Commander Vexara. The Zorblaxian towered over Jack, her iridescent scales shimmering under the harsh artificial lights. 4 arms crossed over her chest as she fixed Jack with a gaze from her 3 violet eyes. "Harper," she said, her voice a low rumble that seemed to reverberate through Jack's bones. "I trust you have a good reason for interrupting my inspection." Jack swallowed hard, fighting the urge to shrink away. "Yes, Commander. I've made a breakthrough in the quantum entanglement research. I think I've found a way to stabilize the field for faster-than-light communication." Vexara's upper lip curled in what Jack had come to recognize as a sneer. "You, a human, made a breakthrough that has eluded the finest minds of the Galactic Confederation for centuries." She let out a barking laugh that drew the attention of nearby workers. "Harper, your species barely managed to crawl out its own gravity a few decades ago. What makes you think you could possibly contribute anything of value to our research?" The sting of her words was familiar, but it didn't make them hurt any less. Jack gritted his teeth, determined not to let her see how much her mockery affected him. "With all due respect, Commander, the data speaks for itself. If you just look at my findings—" "I don't need to look at your findings, Harper," Vexara interrupted, waving one of her 4 hands dismissively. "I'm sure they're full of the same primitive misconceptions and flawed logic that plague all human attempts at understanding the universe. Now, unless you have something actually important to report, I suggest you get back to your menial tasks. Those waste reclamation units won't clean themselves." As Vexara turned away, Jack felt a familiar mix of frustration and determination well up inside him. He'd faced this kind of dismissal ever since he'd arrived on Starbase Omega 6 months ago, the sole human in a sea of alien races far more advanced than his own. But he knew he was onto something big, something that could change everything. Jack retreated to his tiny workstation, tucked away in a corner of the vast research lab. As he settled into his chair, he caught sight of his reflection in a nearby console screen. His dark hair was disheveled, and there were bags under his brown eyes, testament to the long nights he'd spent poring over data and running simulations. At 28, he was young by human standards, and practically an infant in the eyes of long-lived species like the Zorblaxians. But youth had its advantages. Jack possessed a creativity and willingness to challenge established norms that many of his alien colleagues lacked. It was this very trait that had led to his breakthrough. As Jack pulled up his research on the holographic display, a gentle voice spoke from behind him. "Don't let Vexara get to you, Jack. Some of us appreciate the fresh perspective humans bring to the table." He turned to see Lyra, an Arcturian scientist, smiling at him. Her luminescent skin gave off a soft blue glow, and her large, almond-shaped eyes radiated kindness. Unlike many of the other aliens on the station, Lyra had always treated Jack with respect. "Thanks, Lyra," Jack said, managing a small smile. "But sometimes I wondered if I'm just fooling myself. Maybe Vexara's right. Maybe I am out of my depth here." Lyra's antenna twitched, a sign Jack had come to associate with disagreement. "Nonsense. I've seen your work, Jack. It's innovative and daring. The problem isn't your abilities, it's the prejudice you face." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "Between you and me, I think some of the higher-ups are scared of what might happen if humans start making significant contributions. It would upset the current balance of power." Jack's eyes widened at the implication. "You really think so?" Lyra nodded solemnly. "I've been around long enough to see the signs. That's all the more reason for you to keep pushing forward. Now, why don't you show me this breakthrough of yours?" For the next hour, Jack walked Lyra through his findings. He explained how he discovered a way to use quantum entanglement to create a stable field for instantaneous communication across vast distances. If his theories proved correct, it would revolutionize interstellar communication and navigation. As he spoke, Jack's enthusiasm grew. He gestured animatedly at the holographic models, his earlier dejection forgotten in the excitement of sharing his ideas. Lara listened intently, asking probing questions that pushed Jack to refine his explanations. "This is remarkable, Jack," Lara said when he finished. "Truly groundbreaking work. We need to run more tests, of course, but if this pans out," she trailed off, her eyes wide with the implications. Jack nodded, a mix of pride and nervousness swirling in his stomach. "I know. It could change everything. But how do we get anyone to take it seriously? Vexara won't even look at the data." Lara's antenna twitched again, this time in a way that Jack recognized as her thinking gesture. "Leave that to me. I have some contacts in the Galactic Science Council. If we can get them interested, Vexara won't be able to ignore your work." As if summoned by the mention of her name, Commander Vexara's voice boomed across the lab. "Harper, where are you, you useless primate? Those waste reclamation units aren't going to clean themselves." Jack sighed, the weight of reality crashing back down on him. "Duty calls," he said wryly. Lara placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Don't give up, Jack. Keep working on this in your free time. I'll do what I can to get the right people interested. Remember, every great discovery in history was once dismissed as impossible." With a grateful nod to Lyra, Jack stood and made his way towards the source of Vexara's voice. As he walked, he straightened his back and lifted his chin. He might be at the bottom of the pecking order now, but he was more convinced than ever that his breakthrough could change that. Let Vexara mock him. Let the other aliens dismiss him. Jack Harper knew that he was on the verge of something incredible, and no amount of ridicule could take that away from him. As he picked up the cleaning supplies and headed towards the waste reclamation units, his mind was already racing with ideas for his next round of experiments. Little did Jack know that his discovery was about to set in motion a chain of events that would not only transform his own life, but reshape the very fabric of human-alien relations across the galaxy. The underdog was about to have his day, and the universe would never be the same. Unexpected allies. Weeks passed, and Jack's life fell into a grueling routine. By day, he scrubbed waste reclamation units and performed other menial tasks under Vexara's watchful eyes. By night, he pored over his research, refining his theories and running increasingly complex simulations. One evening, as Jack sat hunched over his workstation, the lab doors hissed open. He looked up, expecting to see the night shift arriving. Instead, Lyra hurried in, her luminescent skin pulsing with excitement. "Jack, I've got news," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced around to ensure they were alone before continuing. "I managed to get your research in front of Dr. Zenxa of the Galactic Science Council. She's intrigued and wants to see more." Jack's heart raced. Dr. Zenxa was a legend in the field of quantum physics. Her interest could change everything. "That's amazing, Lyra. But how do we proceed? Vexar is never going to approve any official research time for this." Lyra's antenna twitched mischievously. "Who said anything about official? I've got a plan, but it's going to require some creative scheduling." Over the next few days, Jack and Lyra worked out a system. Jack would perform his regular duties with extra efficiency, carving out pockets of time to work on his research. Lyra used her seniority to assign herself to projects that brought her into the same areas of the station as Jack, allowing them to exchange data and ideas under the guise of routine interactions. It was during one of these clandestine meetings that they had their first breakthrough. Jack was explaining his latest simulation results to Lyra when a thought struck him. "What if we're approaching this from the wrong angle?" he mused, pulling up a 3D model of his quantum field. "We've been trying to stabilize the field from the outside, but what if we could generate it from within?" Lyra's eyes widened. "A self-sustaining quantum entanglement field. Jack, that's brilliant. but the energy requirements would be enormous. Not if we use the quantum fluctuations themselves as a power source, Jack said, his fingers flying over the holographic interface as he adjusted the model. Look, if we configure the field like this. As they worked, neither of them noticed the lab doors opening once again. It wasn't until they heard the familiar rumble of Vexara's voice that they realized they weren't alone. Well, what do we have here? Jack and Lyra spun around, Jack's hand instinctively moving to shut off the holographic display, but it was too late. Vexara had seen enough. The commander stomped towards them, her massive frame seeming to fill the entire lab. Harper, I should have known you'd try to rise above your station. And Lyra, I expected better from you. Consorting with this, primitive. Lyra stepped forward, her usually gentle demeanor replaced by steely determination. Commander Vexara, with all due respect, you're making a mistake. Jack's research is groundbreaking. The Galactic Science Council is already showing interest. Vexara's scales rippled, a sign of agitation. The Council? Impossible. No one would take the ramblings of a human seriously. Then explain this, Jack said, emboldened by Lyra's support. He reactivated the holographic display, showing the latest simulation results. This is a stable, self-sustaining quantum entanglement field. It could revolutionize interstellar communication. For a moment, Vexara was silent, her 3 eyes darting between the display and Jack. Then, to everyone's surprise, she laughed. It wasn't her usual mocking bark, but a deep, genuine sound. Oh, this is rich, she said, wiping a tear from one eye. You actually believe you've accomplished something, don't you? Harper, your species is barely out of its technological infancy. The idea that you could make a discovery of this magnitude is... Vexara trailed off, her eyes narrowing as she took a closer look at the simulation. Her expression shifted from amusement to confusion, then to something Jack had never seen on her face before, doubt. This can't be right, she muttered, reaching out to manipulate the holographic model. The field integrity is, and the power curve is, but that would mean... Jack held his breath, hardly daring to hope. Was Vexara actually considering the validity of his work? The moment was shattered by a sudden tremor that shook the entire station. Alarms blared as the lights flickered and died, plunging the lab into darkness. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. What in the name of the 7 moons was that? Vexara growled, all thoughts of Jack's research forgotten. As if in answer, a voice crackled over the station-wide comm system. Attention all personnel. We are under attack by unknown forces. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Vexara immediately snapped into commander mode. Lyra, get to the command center. I want a full status report. Harper, you're with me. We're heading to the defense grid control room. As they raced through the corridors of Starbase Omega, dodging panicked crew members and sparking conduits, Jack's mind whirled. Who would attack a research station? And why now, just when his work was finally being taken seriously? They burst into the defense grid control room to find it in chaos. Alien technicians scrambled from console to console, shouting in a dozen different languages. Through the view screen, Jack could see sleek, black ships swarming around the station, their weapons leaving scorch marks on the hull. Report, Vexara bellowed, causing the room to fall silent. A nervous-looking Thorian stepped forward, his tentacles twisting anxiously. Commander, they came out of nowhere. Our long-range sensors didn't pick up anything until they were right on top of us. They're using some kind of cloaking technology we've never seen before. Jack's eyes widened as a thought struck him. Cloaking technology. Commander, what if they're using a quantum field similar to the one in my research? It could explain how they're able to mask their approach. Vexara turned to him, her expression unreadable. For a moment, Jack thought she was going to dismiss him again. Instead, she nodded curtly. Explain, quickly. As Jack outlined his theory, Connecting the dots between his research and the attacker's capabilities, he saw something change in Vexara's eyes. The constant disdain was replaced by a grudging respect. "Harper," she said when he finished, "I think it's time you showed us what that human ingenuity of yours can really do. If you're right about this quantum field, can you find a way to disrupt it?" Jack's mind raced, possibilities and calculations flashing through his thoughts. I think so. But I'll need access to the main sensor array and the station's power grid." Vexara nodded, turning to bark orders at her crew. "Give Harper whatever he needs. The rest of you, focus on keeping our shields up. We need to buy him time." As the battle raged outside, Jack found himself working side by side with the very aliens who had dismissed him for so long. But now, with the fate of the station hanging in the balance, old prejudices were set aside. Ideas flowed freely, each species contributing its unique perspective to the problem at hand. Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Jack's fingers flew over alien interfaces, making adjustments and running simulations faster than he ever had before. Finally, just as the station's shields were on the verge of collapse, a triumphant shout rang out. "I've got it," Jack yelled, his face gleaming with sweat and excitement. "Initiating quantum field disruption, now." On the view screen, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The attacking ships flickered into full view, their cloaking fields collapsing under the onslaught of Jack's hastily constructed countermeasure. Caught off guard and suddenly vulnerable, the mysterious assailants turned tail and fled, disappearing into the depths of space. A stunned silence fell over the control room, broken only by the beeping of consoles and the heavy breathing of exhausted crew members. Then, slowly, a cheer began to build. Aliens of all species patted Jack on the back, tentacles and appendages waving in celebration. Vexara approached Jack, her expression solemn, but her eyes glinting with something that might have been admiration. "Well done, Harper," she said, her voice gruff but sincere. "It seems I may have underestimated your species." As the reality of what had just happened sank in, Jack felt a surge of pride. He had done it. He had proven the worth of humanity to the galaxy. But more than that, he had found unexpected allies in the crucible of crisis. Looking around at the diverse array of beings surrounding him, Jack realized that this was just the beginning. The barriers between species were starting to crumble, and a new era of cooperation was dawning. And somehow, against all odds, he found himself at the center of it all. Little did Jack know that the greatest challenge, and the most unexpected alliance, was yet to come. The pregnancy revelation. In the weeks following the attack on Starbase Omega, life changed dramatically for Jack Harper. His quantum field disruption technology had saved the station, and word of his achievement spread quickly through the Galactic Confederation. Suddenly, the human who had once been relegated to cleaning waste reclamation units was being hailed as a hero and a scientific pioneer. Jack found himself promoted to lead researcher, working alongside Lyra and a team of the station's brightest minds to further develop his breakthrough. Even Commander Vexara, who had once dismissed him so callously, now treated him with a grudging respect. One morning, as Jack was deep in discussion with Lyra about the latest refinements to the quantum communication system, Vexara burst into the lab. Her usual composure was noticeably absent, her scales shifting in rapid patterns that Jack had learned to associate with extreme agitation. "Harper, Lyra, my office." "Now," she barked, turning on her heel and striding away without waiting for a response. Exchanging worried glances, Jack and Lyra hurried after her. As the office door slid shut behind them, Vexara began pacing, her forearms clasped tightly behind her back. "Commander," Lyra ventured cautiously, "is everything all right?" Vexara stopped abruptly, fixing them with an intense stare from all three of her violet eyes. "What I'm about to tell you does not leave this room. Is that understood?" Jack and Lyra nodded, tension building in the air. Vexara took a deep breath, her scales rippling with an emotion Jack couldn't quite identify. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Jack's mind reeled, trying to process this unexpected information. Zolblaxian reproduction was notoriously complex, involving multiple partners and a years-long gestation period. For Vexara to be announcing a pregnancy now seemed impossibly sudden. Lyra was the first to find her voice. "Congratulations, Commander. That's wonderful news, isn't it?" Vexara let out a harsh laugh. "Wonderful? It's a disaster. Do you have any idea what this will do to my career? To my standing in the Zolblaxian hierarchy?" Jack frowned, confusion overriding his usual caution around Vexara. "I don't understand. Surely a new life is something to be celebrated, regardless of species." Vexara's gaze snapped to him, and for a moment, Jack feared he'd overstepped. But instead of anger, he saw something that looked almost like fear. "You don't understand, Harper, because you don't know the whole story," Vexara said, her voice uncharacteristically quiet. "The father, he's human." The revelation hit Jack like a physical blow. A human father. But the only humans on Starbase Omega were. His eyes widened as the pieces fell into place. "Dr. Erickson," he breathed, from the medical bay. Vexara nodded, sinking into her chair. It was an experiment, a moment of scientific curiosity. We never thought it would be possible, let alone successful. Lyra's antennae were twitching rapidly, a sign of intense emotion. "But this is incredible. A Zolblaxian-human hybrid. It's unheard of. The scientific implications alone are staggering." "The scientific implications are the least of my concerns," Vexara snapped. "Do you have any idea what will happen when this gets out? I'll be stripped of my command, possibly exiled from Zolblaxian space entirely. And as for the child," she trailed off, her scales darkening with what Jack now recognized as fear. Understanding dawned on Jack. In a galaxy where interspecies tensions still ran high, a half-human, half-Zolblaxian child would face unimaginable challenges, and Vexara, who had built her entire identity around her species' supposed superiority, would have her world turned upside down. "What do you need from us?" Jack asked, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. Vexara looked up, her expression a mix of vulnerability and determination that Jack had never seen before. "I need your discretion, first and foremost. And I need your help. Both of you. Your expertise in genetics," she nodded to Lyra, "and your unique perspective," she turned to Jack, "may be crucial in the months to come." As the gravity of the situation sank in, Jack felt a strange sense of purpose wash over him. This wasn't just about proving humanity's worth anymore. This was about bridging the gap between species in the most fundamental way possible. "You have our support, Commander," Jack said, Lyra nodding in agreement beside him. "Whatever you need." The next few months were a whirlwind of secret meetings, clandestine medical exams, and late-night research sessions. Jack found himself working closely with Dr. Erickson, the father of Vexara's child, to understand the intricacies of human Zolblaxian physiology. Lyra's expertise in xenobiology proved invaluable as they navigated the uncharted waters of this unprecedented pregnancy. As Vexara's condition progressed, Jack was surprised to find her demeanor changing. The once harsh commander became more introspective, often engaging Jack in long conversations about human culture and beliefs. It was during one of these late-night talks that Vexara confided in him. "I used to think humans were so primitive," she said, absently rubbing her swollen midsection. "But now, feeling this life growing inside me, a life that's part human, I'm beginning to see things differently." Jack smiled, recognizing the profound shift in Vexara's worldview. "We may not have the most advanced technology or the longest lifespan, but humans have a lot to offer. Our adaptability, our creativity, our capacity for love. These are strengths too." Vexara nodded slowly. "I'm starting to understand that, and I fear I've done your species a great disservice with my prejudice." As the weeks turned into months, keeping Vexara's condition a secret became increasingly challenging. Rumors began to circulate around the station, fueled by the commander's frequent absences and uncharacteristic behavior. The situation came to a head when a routine inspection by Galactic Confederation officials was announced. "We can't hide this any longer," Vexara said during an emergency meeting with Jack, Lyra, and Dr. Erickson. "When the inspectors arrive, everything will come to light." "Then we don't hide it," Jack said, an idea forming in his mind. "We announce it, on our terms." Lyra's antenna perked up. A controlled revelation, it could work, if we frame it as a breakthrough in interspecies relations, a symbol of unity. Dr. Erickson nodded enthusiastically. "We could present our research, show how this pregnancy is opening new avenues of scientific understanding." Vexara looked uncertain, her scales shifting in complex patterns. "And what of the political fallout? The potential backlash from both our species?" Jack leaned forward, his eyes shining with determination. "We face it head-on, together. This child, your child, represents the future. A future where the barriers between species are broken down, where we learn from each other and grow stronger as a result." For a long moment, Vexara was silent, her three eyes moving from face to face. Then slowly she nodded. "Very well. We'll do it your way, Harper. Let's show the galaxy what humanity and Zorblaxians can achieve together." As they began to plan their announcement, Jack felt a surge of hope. This unexpected pregnancy, born from a moment of scientific curiosity, had the potential to change everything. It was a testament to the unpredictable nature of the universe and the incredible things that could happen when different species came together. Little did they know that their revelation would set off a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the Galactic Confederation. The lines between species were about to be redrawn, and at the center of it all was a tiny life, not yet born, that was already making history. Galactic tensions. The announcement of Commander Vexara's pregnancy sent shockwaves through the Galactic Confederation. What had begun as a carefully orchestrated revelation quickly spiraled into a media frenzy that transcended species boundaries. Overnight, Starbase Omega became the focal point of intense scientific curiosity and political controversy. Jack found himself thrust into the spotlight alongside Vexara, Dr. Erickson, and Lyra. Holonews broadcasts across the galaxy featured their images, discussing the implications of the first-ever human-Zorblaxian hybrid. Some hailed it as a new era of interspecies cooperation, while others decried it as an abomination that threatened the purity of both races. As Jack sat in yet another press conference, fielding questions from journalists of a dozen different species, he couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was unfolding. "Mr. Harper," a Thorian reporter called out, his tentacles waving for attention, "how do you respond to accusations that this pregnancy is part of a human plot to infiltrate and subvert Zorblaxian society?" Before Jack could answer, Vexara leaned forward, her scales shimmering with barely contained anger. "That is absurd," she growled. "This child was conceived in the spirit of scientific inquiry and mutual respect. Any suggestion otherwise is nothing but fear-mongering." Jack nodded in agreement, adding, "Our focus is on the incredible scientific and cultural opportunities it presents. We're breaking new ground in xenobiology, genetics, and interspecies relations." As the conference wore on, Jack noticed a shift in the line of questioning. More and more reporters were asking about his quantum field technology, drawing connections between his breakthrough and the pregnancy. "Mr. Harper," a sleek Arcturian journalist asked, her luminescent skin pulsing with excitement, "there are rumors that your quantum communication system could revolutionize not just interstellar travel, but our very understanding of cross-species compatibility. Can you comment on this?" Jack hesitated, caught off guard by the question. He glanced at Lyra, who gave him a subtle nod of encouragement. "While it's true that our research into quantum fields has opened up new avenues of study, it's premature to draw direct connections to interspecies reproduction. We're still in the early stages of understanding the full implications of this technology." As they left the conference, Lara pulled Jack aside, her antenna twitching with concern. "We need to be careful, Jack. There's a lot of interest in your work, and not all of it is benign. I've heard whispers of certain factions who see your technology as a potential weapon." Jack's brow furrowed. A weapon. But it's meant for communication, for bringing people together. "Any sufficiently advanced technology can be weaponized," Lyra said gravely. "And there are those who fear what might happen if humans suddenly leap forward in technological capability." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Dr. Erickson. "Emergency meeting in Vexara's quarters. Now." When they arrived, they found Vexara pacing agitatedly, all four of her arms gesticulating as she argued with someone on a holographic display. As Jack and Lara entered, she cut the communication with a frustrated swipe. "The Zorblaxian High Command," she explained, her scales dark with anger. "They're recalling me to the homeworld. They're calling this pregnancy an abomination and a threat to genetic purity." She let out a bitter laugh. "Ironic, considering they were the ones who assigned me to this station to keep an eye on other species in the first place." Dr. Erickson stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Vexara's arm. "We won't let them take you. We'll fight this." Jack's mind raced, connecting dots he hadn't seen before. This isn't just about the pregnancy, is it? They're afraid of what it represents, the breaking down of barriers between species, and combined with my quantum field technology. Vexara nodded grimly. "You're more perceptive than I gave you credit for, Harper. Yes, the High Command is terrified of the changes happening here. They see it as a threat to their power, their way of life." A chime from Jack's comm unit interrupted them. It was a priority message from the Galactic Science Council. As he read it, his face paled. "They want me to turn over all my research on the quantum field technology," he said, his voice tight. "Effective immediately. They're citing security concerns and the need to evaluate potential risks." Lyra's antenna drooped. "It's happening, just as I feared. They're moving to control the technology." The room fell silent as the weight of their situation sank in. They were at the center of a gathering storm, one that threatened to tear apart the fragile peace of the Galactic Confederation. It was Vexara who finally broke the silence, her voice filled with a determination that surprised even her. "We will not bow to their fears and prejudices. This child," she placed a hand on her swollen midsection, "represents hope for a future where species boundaries mean nothing. And your work, Harper, could be the key to making that future a reality." Jack nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "You're right. We can't let them control the narrative or the technology. But what can we do? We're just a handful of individuals against entire governments and powerful organizations." A sleek smile spread across Lyra's face, her antenna twitching with excitement. "We may be few, but we're not alone. I've been in contact with sympathetic members of various species. There's a growing movement out there, beings who believe in the vision of a truly united galaxy. We just need to rally them to our cause." Dr. Erickson chimed in, his scientific mind already working on solutions. "We need to accelerate our research, show the galaxy the positive potential of both the hybrid pregnancy and the quantum field technology before those who fear change can twist it to their purposes." As they began to plan their resistance, Jack felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. They were about to challenge the status quo of the entire galaxy, armed with nothing but a groundbreaking invention, an unprecedented pregnancy, and the belief that diversity was strength, not weakness. Little did they know that their actions were about to set off a chain reaction that would reshape the political landscape of the Galactic Confederation. As tensions rose and battle lines were drawn, the fate of multiple species would hinge on the success of their audacious plan. In the midst of it all, Jack couldn't help but marvel at how far he'd come. From a lowly human technician to a key player in a galactic drama, he was living proof of humanity's potential to change the universe. Now, he just had to make sure that change was for the better. As they worked late into the night, formulating strategies and reaching out to potential allies, The first rumblings of a galactic storm began to brew. The next few weeks would determine not just their own fates, but the future of interspecies relations for generations to come. Race against time. The next few weeks on Starbase Omega were a blur of frenetic activity. Jack, Lyra, Dr. Erickson, and Vexara found themselves at the center of a swirling maelstrom of political intrigue, scientific breakthrough, and personal drama. As Vexara's pregnancy progressed, it became clear that they were in a race against time on multiple fronts. One morning, as Jack was poring over the latest data from his quantum field experiments, an alarm blared through the station. He rushed to the medical bay to find it in chaos. Dr. Erickson was barking orders to his staff while Vexara lay on a biobed, her scales pulsing with an alarming rapidity. "What's happening?" Jack demanded, his heart racing. Dr. Erickson's face was grim. "The fetus is developing at an accelerated rate. Its human DNA is interacting with Zolblaxian biology in ways we never anticipated. If we can't stabilize the process, we could lose them both." Jack's mind reeled. He had grown close to Vexara over the past months, watching as her initial disdain for humans transformed into a deep appreciation and even affection. The thought of losing her and the child that represented so much hope was unbearable. "What can I do?" he asked, determination setting his jaw. Lyra, who had arrived moments after Jack, stepped forward. "Your quantum field technology, Jack. We've been using it for communication, but what if we could adapt it to stabilize a fetus's genetic structure?" Dr. Erickson's eyes widened. "A quantum stasis field. It's theoretical, but it might just work. We'd need to reconfigure the entire system, though, and fast." Jack nodded, already running calculations in his head. "I'll need access to the station's main power grid and every available quantum processor." "Done," Vexara growled through gritted teeth, her authority as station commander undiminished even in her current state. "Whatever you need, take it." As Jack and Lyra raced to modify the quantum field generators, word of Vexara's condition spread through the station and beyond. Messages of support poured in from unexpected quarters. Beings of all species who had been inspired at the story of the human-Zolblaxian hybrid. But with the supportive messages came renewed threats and ultimatums from those who opposed their work. "The Zolblaxian High Command is demanding we turn over Vexara and terminate the abomination," Lyra reported grimly as they worked. "And the Galactic Science Council is getting more insistent about seizing your research, Jack. They're threatening to send in peacekeepers to secure the station." Jack's hands flew over the control panels, making minute adjustments to the quantum field. "They'll have to wait. We've got more important things to worry about right now." Hours stretched into days as they battled to stabilize Vexara's pregnancy. Jack worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of his invention in ways he had never imagined. The quantum field, originally designed for communication, was repurposed to create a cocoon of stable space-time around the developing fetus, slowing its growth to a manageable rate. As Jack made the final adjustments to the field, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Vexara, her normally imposing frame weakened by the ordeal, but her eyes bright with an emotion he had never seen in them before: hope. "Harper," she said, her voice uncharacteristically soft, "I owe you an apology. I judged your species harshly, dismissed your potential, but you've shown me the true strength of humanity, your adaptability, your compassion, your unwavering determination in the face of impossible odds." Jack smiled, exhaustion and emotion making his voice rough. "We're not so different, you and I. We both want to push the boundaries of what's possible, to create a better future. This child of yours, it's a symbol of that future." Vexara nodded, placing a hand on her swollen midsection. "A future where the lines between species blur, where we judge each other not by our biology but by the content of our character." Their moment of understanding was interrupted by a blaring alarm. Lyra burst into the room, her luminescent skin pulsing with urgency. "We've got incoming. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Zolblaxian warships and Galactic Confederation peacekeepers. Jack's heart sank. They were out of time. The forces that sought to control their research and stop the birth of the hybrid child had arrived. "How long do we have?" he asked, already moving to secure the quantum field generators. "Minutes at most," Lyra replied. "They're hailing the station, demanding immediate surrender of you, Vexara, and all research materials." Vexara straightened, her commander's demeanor reasserting itself despite her weakened state. "We will not surrender. Not now, not when we're so close." As if in response to her words, the quantum field surrounding her midsection pulsed with a brilliant light. Dr. Erickson, who had been monitoring Vexara's condition, let out a gasp of surprise. "The fetus, its vital signs are stabilizing. The quantum field is working." A surge of triumph ran through Jack, but it was quickly tempered by the reality of their situation. They had saved Vexara and her child, but now they faced a threat from both the Zolblaxian military and the Galactic Confederation. "We need a plan," Jack said, his mind racing. "We can't fight our way out, but maybe we can show them the truth. Use the quantum field technology not just to save Vexara's child, but to broadcast our message to the entire galaxy." Lyra's antenna perked up. A galaxy-wide quantum entanglement broadcast. It's never been done before, but in theory. "Theory is all we have right now," Jack said, a determined glint in his eye. "And it's all we need. If we can show the galaxy what we've accomplished here, a human invention saving a Zolblaxian human hybrid, maybe we can change some minds." As they scrambled to reconfigure the quantum field generators once again, the first shots were fired. The station shook under the impact of warning blasts from the assembled fleet. Time was running out. The fate of Vexara, her child, and possibly the future of interspecies relations in the galaxy now rested on Jack's shoulders. As he worked feverishly to set up the broadcast, he couldn't help but marvel at the twisted path that had led him to this moment. From a lowly technician cleaning waste reclamation units to the potential savior of a new era of galactic cooperation, Jack Harper was about to make history. Whether that history would be one of triumph or tragedy remained to be seen. With a deep breath, Jack prepared to activate the galaxy-wide broadcast. Whatever happened next would change the course of galactic history forever. A new era dawns. The control room of Starbase Omega crackled with tension as Jack Harper made the final adjustments to his improvised quantum broadcast system. Outside, the combined fleet of Zolblaxian warships and Galactic Confederation peacekeepers loomed menacingly, their weapons trained on the station. Time was running out. "Are you sure this will work?" Vexara asked, her voice strained but steady. She stood proudly despite her condition, one hand resting protectively over her swollen midsection, the other gripping a console for support. Jack met her gaze, determination burning in his eyes. "Honestly, I'm not sure of anything right now, but it's our best shot." Lyra's antenna twitched nervously as she monitored the incoming transmissions. They're issuing their final warning. "We have 2 minutes before they begin boarding procedures." Dr. Erickson looked up from the medical scanner he'd been using to monitor Vexara and the baby. "The quantum stasis field is holding. The child is stable, but we can't maintain this state indefinitely." Jack took a deep breath, his fingers hovering over the activation sequence. "Well, it's now or never. Let's show the galaxy what happens when species work together instead of against each other." With a nod from Vexara, Jack initiated the broadcast. The quantum field generators hummed to life, their energy redirected from maintaining the stasis field around Vexara's unborn child to transmitting a signal across the vast expanse of the galaxy. "Attention, citizens of the Galactic Confederation," Jack began, his voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. "My name is Jack Harper. I'm a human, and I'm speaking to you from Starbase Omega." As Jack spoke, holographic displays sprang to life in homes, public spaces, and starships across thousands of worlds. Beings of all species paused in their daily activities, captivated by the unprecedented broadcast.